there's nothing on this world that hasn't happened because it wasn't planned to happen. The world that we live in is a very different place to what many people perceive it to be. Many people believe that they live in a free world, a free society. They think government is there to protect them and that everything is as it should be. And through all this, people just go about their lives and go about their everyday business, going to work, going to play, getting educated, going to school, going to hang out with their friends, even going to the government-approved enjoyment zones that have been created for them around the cities and around the complexes, completely oblivious to the surroundings that they're living in. Though not all, because very often people will wake up to the fact that something is terribly wrong, that there's a controlling hand, that their lives are perhaps a lot more difficult than they should be. And perhaps they will start going down the rabbit holes of alternative media and alternative research, and they'll start finding out all these incredible things they didn't know before, and a lot of these things will be appealing. And if what they're looking at isn't appealing, there will be another theory somewhere for them that is appealing. And it will pull them into this rabbit hole, and they'll lock themselves into a belief system, and then they'll think they know what's going on. And this has been done, and all of the rabbit holes and all the information and all the stuff that people need has been put out there, so that it doesn't really matter which direction that they go, they will still find things that confirm what they're saying, and it becomes an adventure for them. It becomes like a spy novel. You start finding out how corrupt the world really is. You start finding about all these secret dealings and these secret societies. It becomes very exciting to explore these rabbit holes and to see what you're going to find out. I figured if people spend a little bit of time considering what happened in the past, then they might realise why we got here and how we got here and what's been done to us to bring us to this point. And perhaps if we can do that, then we'll see where we're being led. So that's been my motivation there. And sure, ultimately all roads lead to the same place anyway, and these things are important to find out. It is important to discover what happened in the past, but while we're doing this, it's also very important to not lose focus on what's going on around us, because all the while that we are going down these rabbit holes and finding out all these things, the system is still rolling itself out around us, and it's happening very, very quickly. And that's the problem that can happen. People can get stuck in their rabbit holes and they can fail to pay attention to what's going on around them. And all the while that they're down these holes, the world around us is slowly degrading. The system of control that we first saw that woke us up to the fact that something was terribly wrong and caused us to even want to go down these rabbit holes and explore these paths of investigation becomes something secondary to us. It's still there. We're still seeing it, but we're too engrossed in our spy novel version of reality. And we get so locked into wanting to know why and wanting to find someone to point the finger at, to really pay attention to the surroundings that we're living in and how different they are becoming. Why are all these problems there? They're there because they're legislated to be there. They're there because what we perceive to be governments is not really governments at all. And if you really step back and look at it, it's a very, very deliberate action. If you look at the world, there's nothing on this world that hasn't happened because it wasn't planned to happen. All of these problems happen because they're legislated to happen. And if we didn't have government there, then none of this legislation that inhibits our movements and inhibits our lives and decreases our potential a little bit further every day wouldn't be there. It's all there because the government exists, which is how they are able to legislate all of these problems into existence. And that's why it becomes important to pay attention. And it becomes important to alert people to the reality of their surroundings. And in this process, as suggested in the opening quote, words truly are one of the most powerful things we have at our disposal. Words can be used to spread information, and if it's done in the right way, they can be used to inspire people. And we certainly need to do this because we are facing a lot of problems at the moment, we really are, and people need to be informed of what's really going on around them. Unfortunately, too many people are stuck looking into their little scrying mirrors, their black mirrors that they're carrying around in their hands, and they're locked into the virtual world, and they're not really paying attention to what's going on around them. Now, the virtual world is so attractive, it's so bright, and lots of colourful icons, and it's always larger than life, even though it is so much smaller than life. But unfortunately, through the massive amount of attention people are giving to the virtual world, they're really not paying attention to the surroundings that they're living in. And the surroundings that they are living in are becoming increasingly more controlled and increasingly less friendly for human habitation. If you really want to look at it, if you really want to look at the damage we're doing to the world, it's getting very, very difficult for people to be able to live anywhere outside major city areas. And the whole thing is one big puppet show. Now imagine living in a world like that, folks, where everything is spying on you. It'd be like 1984 on steroids, not just your TV screen watching you and how he had the safe place in the corner of his room where he could go and write in his notebook. In the world that's being created, you won't even have that safe place. You won't even be able to have a quiet conversation with your lover in bed because there'll be appliances in the room that are listening to you. How will you ever be able to have a creative conversation or think outside the box or discuss anything with anybody? How will you ever even be able to think anything outside the box or think or say or do anything you want to do? How could you ever be anything that could even be construed as in being in any way free? And that's the type of dystopian future that we're allowing the governments to roll out around us. And not only that, folks, if you do get blacklisted in that sort of an environment, there's nowhere to go, there's nowhere to hide, there's nothing you can go and do, there's nowhere you can go and stay, no one you can go and visit, no place you can get away from the system because the system is everywhere. Complete blanket surveillance of everything. And in that type of a society, folks, the mere threat of thinking the way the government doesn't want is enough to make everybody comply. And in that sort of a reality, the government can do anything that it wants, with anybody that it wants, and it can do so without any accountability for its actions, rape, pillage and plunder and harvest the human herd with absolutely no recourse at all. That's the thing, folks, it all comes down to an individual choice, and it's come down to that now. It's on the ground with everybody, it's facing everybody, it's come right to your backyard now. And we always said people wouldn't do anything about it until it was in their own backyard. Well, now it is, folks, so now's the time that you have to make a stand. The problem that we're facing is a lot of people don't really realise what the New World Order is. They don't really realise that it is the smart grid, it is the Internet of Things, the digitisation of cash and the social crediting system that's going to go along with it. And there's just all of these theatrics going on to convince people to sit back and wait for something wonderful to happen. And what they're really asking people to do is to sit back and wait for government to save them from government. So the question is what to do about it. What are the solutions? And the real problem with that is that people want solutions without really having to participate in them themselves. I mean, sure, we could create a new system and say, well, let's replace the old system with this system, but it's still a system. So these are the sorts of things we have to consider. You know, we've got to look at the way things are going now, look at the direction things are going, and nothing's seriously being done to stop it. So again, what we have to do is find a way that's going to work for us in this new system, because obviously it's changing over. You know, they're calling it the second industrial revolution, what's happening. And what we have to do is find a way of gaining control of the direction it's going to go. Because it's going to go that direction, because no one's stopping it. No one can come along on a big white horse and save the world. You know, the world is a whole bunch of little independent communities and little independent people in independent houses that all have to stand up for themselves and remember who and what they are. Remember that we don't need this slavery system. We used to live in a world of cooperation. I'm absolutely certain of it. And we can do that again if we can just be prepared to put down all of our differences, put down all of the division, put down all the distrust. You know, it's the people against the system, really, and even a lot of the people who are working in the system hate the system as well. They don't want to be doing what they're doing. They just do it because they get good wages to do it, and they need the money because they've got to pay to be alive, and they don't have the support of the community around them anyway. But if the community around them at large was to just pull their support from this system completely and simply say, hey, no, we don't want to do this anymore, then the system has nowhere to go. The system ceases to function because we are the ones who supply all of the energy to the system via our participation in the system. We've got to start thinking about all this, folks, and start thinking about how we're participating in our own slavery and what changes we can make to stop doing that. You know, and all we have to do to achieve this is identify what the real problem is, folks. And the real problem is government and our participation in this system of slavery that they've created.